If buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. That's
True.
a phrase that you've probably seen floating around before, but it hits harder than ever right now after Sony's announcement that they will be transitioning to a digital-only future for video games.
We've gone so hard down the trans rabbit hole that now even PlayStation themselves are transitioning
And discontinuing physical media from 2028. There is currently major backlash and disappointment over this news as people are raising questions over ownership, preservation.
I think people are misunderstanding what we actually need done. I don't care about physical games. I want DRM-free files that I could make my own physical games with. Or I could buy a physical version of the game from somebody who just made a cool version of it. I don't need official physical versions.
And collector's value. Piracy is at the heart of this discussion, with figures like Frank Cifaldi, the founder of the Video Game History Foundation, saying that this is currently the only real way to preserve games. Despite any moral reservations that you might have about it, piracy has historically played a massive role in embedding.
I don't even care about the morals of piracy. Does my morals outweigh the morals of the people I'm pirating their product from? I'm not pirating people, that'd be weird. You wouldn't download a person.
Gaming culture in countries where there was no other option to obtain video games. And as it stands today, piracy may be the only way forward as a means to preserve games and this particular part of gaming culture.
I don't even care. I don't even care. They can crumble, bish. We can preserve the games, because they will be preserved. But if they don't do it, and they make us have to do it, then they're just gonna crumble. And I'm here for it. Fuck all these corpos, man. And people are like, well, you hate communism, but you also hate corporations. Don't you know that communists hate corporations? Listen, I don't hate all corporations. I love a lot of corporations. Particularly old corporations that aren't really around anymore.
10, 20, and even 50 years down the line, if these digital-only titles start disappearing due to licensing, censorship, or whatever other reason they may see fit to pull a game from your digital library, there is going to be no way to access them for historical record or research. Today I want to talk about this whole situation, focusing mainly on the piracy aspect and its significance to gaming culture in the past, and potentially in our future. Before we get started, hi, my name is Angelica, and recently enough, we talked about the dying art of physical media on this channel. There's a massive art element that will be forever lost to time once physical media is discontinued. We talked about it in detail on that.
I think it's already been lost, because, like, yeah, we don't have manuals. The discs aren't really that cool looking. They kind of just look boring, because they got the PlayStation label, and it's really hard. It's a hard label.
That video, and for
like, you don't see a hard label on this disc. It's just a full World of Warcraft disc, and it has soul.
Physical media has always been a part of the fun when it came to video games. I enjoy tangible, real-life collectibles and something to keep in my home as a symbol of my appreciation for my favorite games.
I don't. Like I said, I want to do what I want with the things that I have. And I like the digital library. I like all digital. I think having a physical option would be great.
It's what collectors do. There was always a market for this sort of thing. That's why collector's editions exist. So in discontinuing physical media, of course collectors are primarily affected, but it's also in losing that additional art element that came with the creation of games. You can check that video out if you want to hear more from me on physical media, but ownership and preservation is where piracy comes in. The sad truth is that for a lot of newer games, physical media just isn't enough anymore. It has been happening for a while with certain games that even if you did buy a physical disc, you weren't guaranteed ownership or preservation.
And the physical disc, really, the version that's on the disc isn't the full version of the game because they've got updates and patches, and I like that. I'm fine with updates and patches. I wish my games would come actual feature complete whenever they release, but I don't buy games on release either.
For example, some people happen to be in possession of a legendary Daedric artifact known as the physical copy of Concord. You can't do anything with it anymore. Physical media seems to be the final straw where they're straight up pulling that option from consumers, but with so many of these live service games, games that force you to connect to the internet, and the ones that don't have any offline mode, they decide to pull it and it's gone, despite any money that you spent on it or whatever else. For those particular games, physical media gave the illusion of ownership, but in reality it was just an access key that could be revoked at any time. And it has been revoked, we've seen it happen. This is why things like the Stop Killing Games movement are so important for us as consumers. We need laws in place for there to be an alternative once a game decides to shut down or discontinue support. And
I disagree. I think the culture needs to fix it, not the government. Whenever the government gets involved in things, it's always bad. And sure, if we get enough people behind it, then maybe we can actually get some good things done. But people will get something done and forget and move on, and then they'll just run away with it again. Just look at the ESRB. I think the ESRB, at first, what they were to be used for was great. But now it just doesn't work anymore. And a lot of things that you'd think wouldn't be for children, they think are acceptable. A lot of things that you think would be acceptable for children, they don't think so. So it's just completely fucked. And they'll decide that, oh, games like GTA San Andreas, that's adults only. We're not going to be allowed to sell that in stores. So you better change the game however I want you to change it.
And it is starting to look like Stop Killing Games could also be very crucial in future for consumer rights if we really are moving to digital-only libraries. Also, GOG is a platform that has been very vocal since the news from Sony dropped. Their whole thing is digital ownership. As it should be. If you've spent on a game, digital or not, it should
not just digital ownership. It's like you can do what you want with the files. If you want to burn it onto a disk, go for it, man. You want to send the files over to your buddy and let them just have the files, go for it, man. They won't be able to access your account to keep re-downloading the files like you can because you paid for that access. That's really what you're paying for, is you're paying for the license to keep downloading the files. That's what GOG really is, and I love that.
Shouldn't just be the case where it can be taken away from you at any time. On GOG, even if a game vanishes from the storefront, it never leaves your library. Some users have pointed out, well, what if GOG goes out of business? They've stated that they do have offline installers, so if you want, you can put your whole game library on a disk. It's the convenience.
Also, if GOG goes out of business, they can just transfer the licenses to another company.
Of a digital purchase, but also the security of being able to physically keep a copy if you want to. Sony, of course, is not offering this option. In fact, they're not offering any kind of alternative. So what do people do when there is no other option? Piracy. If we want preservation, at the moment, piracy is the only viable option. As I mentioned earlier, piracy is something that majorly contributed to cementing gaming culture in places where they didn't have a legitimate market yet.
You know what you're competing with piracy? You're not competing with the price of games. You're competing with the service of piracy. If piracy's better than the service that you offer, people are going for piracy. I'd rather buy my games, but if I'm gonna buy my games, I want full access.
Places like Russia and all across Eastern Europe, for example, years ago you couldn't just go and buy a game legitimately because there was no distribution. People often wonder why very specific games are particularly popular with Russians and why others are not. The answer is that consoles, for example, weren't as common or accessible, but PCs were. Games with low system requirements, often in a genre that would most likely appeal to the people there from a cultural viewpoint, would be pirated and distributed. Markets sold bootleg versions that also included Russian localization, something that again wasn't offered legitimately at the time. As a result, many of my first games were pirated or bootleg versions with Russian localization. This also created an industry for voice actors to be able to produce localized, dubbed versions of the games. The Diablo 2 that I played when I was a child was one of these pirated dubbed versions, and despite some weird elements here and there, it was pretty perfect. But piracy also created a market for legitimate distribution down the line. Without piracy, Russian gamers might not have had an interest in a lot of Western titles, and they probably would have just stuck to playing whatever was produced in Russia at the time by Russian studios. And of course now, due to sanctions, piracy is on the rise once again. But it's as Gabe Newell said, the easiest way to stop piracy is not by putting anti-piracy technology to work. It's by giving those people a service that's better than what they're receiving from the pirates. So we fast forward to today, where more options are taken away and no alternatives or solutions are being provided. We now have more incentives for pirating. This goes beyond just people who want to get a game for free. Organizations dedicated to archiving and preserving the history of—
I don't want my games for free. Honestly, I'd rather pay for them. I don't want to just pirate, because piracy is not a better service than the service that I can imagine, which is GOG. I just wish there were more games on GOG, and I wish they had more like an app on Linux like Steam. That would really get me in, which I'm already all in on GOG anyway, but I'll start transferring my Steam library over to GOG if they can, you know, be like Steam. Because I still use Steam for games that I already purchased. I just don't purchase games on Steam anymore.
Video games, something that is incredibly culturally significant and valuable, are saying that this is the only option. We can go back to the discussion on ethics surrounding piracy, but why is it that the consumer always has to be the one to worry about ethics? A major multi-billion-dollar company can make poor decisions. They can invest hundreds of millions of dollars into terrible projects that result in people getting laid off and losing their jobs. They can shut down and pull games that you paid for, or they can straight
I think this video came out before the Xbox layoffs happened.
up kill physical media at a time where no laws have yet caught up to regulate this sort of thing for consumer rights and protections. But the consumer has to feel bad about looking for a solution where no alternative was provided. Archivists like the Video Game History Foundation cannot themselves preserve everything if companies aren't willing to work with them. It's all approached with a sort of carelessness that is just so reflective of how the entire industry operates nowadays. And all of these changes are happening way faster than consumer laws can catch up because they simply do not.
The industry is just money for me. I want all of the money and you're not allowed to have any. And if you do anything that I think, or that you think that I should be doing, and I'm not doing it, well, that's too bad. I'm just not gonna do it. Yeah, fuck you. Make a better service or we will make a better service.
Not care. Game preservation and ownership is important to people like us. For them, it is all about maximizing profits, and that is the profitable thing to do. Even their stock rose when they announced this. But nobody in those companies that actually has the power to do something about preservation of these games is willing to do anything about it. Like I've said, physical media for these live service online games isn't a guarantee, but for offline single-player games, it is an option. And without physical media or piracy, a lot of these games would actually have disappeared by now. One example for me is the Chronicles of Riddick games. So this is the PS3 version. This has Assault on Dark Athena, but it also included the Escape from Butcher Bay campaign. My brother and I had an obsession with the Riddick movies when we were growing up, and then we got a hold of the games, and it was insane that movies and the games both kind of lived up to the hype, at least for us. This is really unique, by the way. It had a very interesting stealth component. It was actually quite hard as well, even trying it recently. It's not an easy game. Very engaging mechanics, loved the story, loved the vibe.
Remember when game companies used to take risks and experiment? That's why we have games like Fear and Metro that just don't come out nowadays. I mean, we got a new Metro. I'm fucking excited for that. But I think Metro is really the only FPS that I can think of that just has crazy different mechanics that nobody else is doing, like wiping your lens on your face, the gas mask mechanic and how it breaks.
The whole aesthetic of the games. You
Fear has that mechanic where you can slide down slopes if you just stand there.
can't buy them anymore. What happened was the license just expired and nobody ever renewed it, so it was pulled from digital storefronts and it stopped selling. The only way to be able to play these games now is if you get your hands on a physical copy, or if you get one of these.
I always bring up Forza Horizon 4 because that's one of my favorite games of all time, and you just can't buy it.
Elusive digital codes that apparently exist, but also I'm not really sure that they do anymore. But what's the other option, boys and girls? Piracy. Video games are art. They deserve to be preserved. It isn't just like a silly little pastime anymore. It hasn't been for decades for a lot of people. Video games are a massive part of our modern day culture. I do hope to see real change in terms of the actual laws around our protections when it comes to these things. But for now, honestly, I'm not even excited about like new updates in terms of technology. The PlayStation 6, it used to sound like such an exciting thing, the next generation of consoles, and you want to see what they've got and how everything looks, but now it's all just disappointment after disappointment. And the more the industry progresses, you'd think that we'd have more convenience and more options, but really, we actually have to go back to things like piracy in order to be able to do something as simple as own or preserve a game. But yeah, that's about it for this topic today. Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below.